Like Joe Biden's plan, the Social Security 2100 Act would set a higher minimum benefit for low-income workers. Benefits would be set at 125% above the poverty line and tied to current wage levels. There's also a benefit boost for both new and existing beneficiaries, amounting to that 2% amount for the average benefit. Annual COLA will be tied to the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, and the argument is that this experimental index may better reflect the costs that seniors face. Biden also included this change in his Social Security proposals. Notably, the Social Security 2100 Act, proposed in 2019, had more than 200 co-sponsors. Breaking news, a new timeline for the fourth stimulus check has been released. This includes when the fourth stimulus payments will be deposited for most Americans. Low and middle income households may also see a large monthly benefit because, very soon, have this new piece of legislation. So everybody, relief may be on the way for qualifying families, and there's a new law being proposed in the state of Connecticut. It's going to give you much needed help to struggling families in the form of a new child tax credit. As tax season is rapidly approaching, Americans are looking for ways to get additional relief, and now lawmakers in the state of Connecticut want to take some action. The child tax credit is being sponsored by several Connecticut representatives and will come in addition to crisis relief, stimulus checks, and a temporary boosted federal child tax credit. The proposed law would offer families with $600 checks per child. The state is currently operating on a projected surplus of $1.48 billion, leaving many to applaud the proposed bill. The Connecticut governor also announced a proposed $336 million tax cut. It's going to provide millions of dollars to relief. It's going to provide relief to millions of people. It's estimated that around 500,000 parents would benefit from the proposed law if it's passed. In an official statement, the governor of Connecticut said, "Today, Connecticut has a surplus, and we did it without broad-based tax increases. And while making a historic investment in our pension obligations and leaving the rainy day fund untouched, there are also eligibility requirements that need to be met. For instance, children must be under 17 years old. Income qualifications also include up to $100,000 individual filers and up to $160,000 for head of households." The child tax credit under the American Rescue Plan was the largest in history. Under the law, families can get an increased tax break for up to $3,000 for every child ages 6 to 17. If you do not reside in Connecticut, there are many other states that are offering their own child tax credit programs. Other states offering relief are states like California, Idaho, and Illinois. Maine, Maryland, New York, and Mexico and Oklahoma. New Mexico and Oklahoma. Now, over the past weeks, Mitt Romney has also pushed for a Republican-friendly version of the expanded child tax credit that he hopes could gain bipartisan support. His proposal would bring back the direct monthly payments that many parents used for 6 months last year to cover the cost of food, clothing, and childcare. But Romney's form of extra monthly payments would add a stringent work requirement. And everybody, it's important to remember that a bipartisan bill might be the only way for the expanded tax credit to land on President Biden's desk. Romney has largely worked with fellow Republicans on his plan, but conversations with Democrats have increased in the last month or so. Senate Democrat Michael Bennet, who has been involved with Democratic efforts to secure an extension of the child tax credit, has cities open to advancing the policy.
We're rebuilding America. We're going to invest in America and build a better America than we found. And for the better part of the 20th century, we used to lead the world by a significant margin because we invested in ourselves. We invested in our infrastructure, our roads, our highways, bridges, ports, airports, the arteries of the nation that allow commerce to function smoothly and move swiftly. And we invested in our people and in opportunity. We're among the first nations to provide universal high school at the turn of the 20th century.
Joe Manchin is urging that the Biden administration take immediate action to address the rising inflation that is affecting millions of Americans. Monthly relief benefits, everybody, will finally see an increase this year for millions of people. Social Security checks, stimulus payments are coming your way. And I'm glad to see that President Biden is actually taking some steps to help the American people out. Now, Manchin has officially sounded the alarm after the Labor Department announced that annual inflation had risen at the fastest rate in 4 decades, emphasizing that Congress should not add more fuel to an economy already on fire. Manchin is concerned about how Democrats want to pass a roughly $2 trillion spending and climate package. Manchin has already cited concerns about inflation and the cost of the bill. In an official statement, Manchin said inflation is draining the hard-earned wages for every American and causing real severe and economic pain. Joe Manchin also added that it is beyond time for the Federal Reserve to tackle this issue head-on. According to the Labor Department, everybody, consumer prices increased 7.5% annually in the year ending in January, marking the fastest rate since February 1982. It was the sixth consecutive month the Consumer Price Index, which tracks inflation, actually rose on an annual basis. In January alone, consumer prices increased by 0.6%, and that's a lot. And that's the same speed as December. In the previous 3 months, however, the rate had dropped. Manchin said the threat of inflation is real, and it's time we start acting like stewards of our economy and the money that the American people entrust their government with. Now more than ever, we must remember it's not our money.
Jan, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Good to be here.
You know, our next guest, or one of our next guests, Sheila Bair, is going to say that she sees inflation nowhere near its peak and not peaking until 2023. You don't really agree. I think that may put you in a bit of a minority. Explain why you don't think inflation is going to be the sort of discouraging valent that causes consumers to pull back.
Well, I'm really concerned about inflation. I lived through it last time. You know, I was there in 82, 80, 81, all those years when it was really, really tough in the business. So I'm very concerned about it. I think, though, we're about to see a peak, and I'm guessing mid-year this year. Could she be right? 2023, I don't know. But at some point in time, we're about to see a peak. In the meantime, the consumer seems very, very healthy. Everybody has a job. We're seeing actually growth in the workforce for the first time in a long time. People who get a job believe they can keep it. If they lose it, they think they can get a better job. They can make more money. They're trading up. There's a lot of good things happening with consumers. So I don't think we're going to see much resistance to price in the near term. Some point in time we will. When we do, that would be a problem. But I suspect by then inflation will start ameliorating. So it's not that I'm not concerned about it. I just think that the consumer is going to overwhelm it with their $3 trillion of extra cash that they're sitting on, and the fact that they've all got a job and look like they can have rising wages. So I believe we'll go forward and things will be fine. But yeah, I'm worried about it. I'm worried about the fact that it costs more to ship goods. But I also think that's getting better right now. We've got fewer boats on the water, not more boats on the water. I really don't think we're going to lock down for a long time in China. If we were, that'd be a problem. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be better on that side than it was last year, not worse. And we handled it fine last year.
There are so many variables here, including the possibility of U.S. economic retaliation if China steps in as a major supporter of Russia in Ukraine. But let me ask you about two things that I do think concern consumers right now. One is gas prices. I mean, you fill up an SUV, which almost every American household seems to have, and you're spending at least $20 more than you did, say, a year ago. Do that a couple of times a week, a few times a month, and you're looking at serious money for the average American consumer. That's number one. And I think if you ask most Americans today,